So, angels are around us all the time. Today I had an experience when leaving a public aid building. I went there to go get some assistance with something. And I had to stop at the desk as I was leaving. And I was compelled to tell the lady behind the desk that I asked her, do you have an affinity towards Michael? Do you pray to Michael? And she has looked at me weird. She goes, Archangel Michael? And I said, yes. And she says, well, yes, I do. I pray to him all the time. And I said, well, he's right here with you. And I guess like he kind of was, I guess she's been calling him a lot. So I sensed him this morning as I was leaving the building. And it was a good thing, too, that he was so, they're around all the time, right? But I mean, like, that he was on my mind so much because as I left the building, now to put this into context, I'm just dressed in some grubby clothes, I had on a big, long trench coat, like a man's trench coat, and I had some black boots on and just like a scarf with a hoodie. And so I was pretty bundled up and, pretty rough looking. And I leave the building and there's this really good looking guy standing there. And he is black dude with nice jeans and like work boots or whatever. And like a pretty snazzy looking, like colorful leather jacket. And like some, what are they called? Earmuffs, that go like behind the head, around the back of the head kind of thing. So I look at him because he's a pretty good looking guy and I'm friendly anyway. And I just smile and I say hi and walk past. And he's just standing there. And, he says whatever to me. I don't remember. I couldn't really hear him. My hearing is getting different nowadays. I can't hear things like I used to. Like, I pick up on more things now, and I can hear quieter, smaller noises, like little weird things, like vibrations and this. But somebody talking to me, half the time I can't hear what they're saying anymore. So, he said something to me, but I didn't really hear him. And then as I was, kind of getting my book bag on my shoulder and my hands in my pockets and stuff, I felt compelled to like kind of look back towards him. And he was talking to me and I said, what? And he said, do you have a pen? And I says, oh no, I don't have anything. I says, I only got some snacks. And I thought to myself, oh, you stupid idiot, don't be telling him that you got snacks. He's going to want some. And it wasn't that I didn't want to give any away, because I'm that kind of person where I'll share, but I was really hungry and I hadn't eaten yet and I didn't want to share my snacks. So it wasn't that I was being rude or anything. I didn't want to share. I just didn't. And so I was just like, hey, I got to go, like I didn't really want to talk to him. I wanted to go. It was cold out. So whatever, dude. And so I'm walking and I am walking to a parking garage and I am like 2.5 blocks away from it, let's just say. Let's say 2 blocks away. So about a block away, I get a feeling like he's following me. And I think to myself, shit. And immediately I think of Michael, Archangel Michael. And I go, Michael, I need you right now, please. Please, Michael, help me out here. Help me a little bit. Help me out. And this is where, like, I have a block left to get to the parking garage, and time slows down. The ground is kind of slick, because there was snow and then some freezing rain went on top of it. So I'm trying to kind of fast penguin walk with my book bag, my heavy, not kind of heavy book bag, and all bundled up, and I can't hear too good because of my hood being on and stuff. So I'm just like, uh-oh. And I think I hear his footsteps quickening, like I could hear his footsteps behind me really close. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, that ain't right. And I go, Michael, 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 you know, I'm like thinking about him, getting a little bit, you know, like, I don't want this to happen. I've been in lots of experiences in my life. I mean, I'm not scared to turn around and fight somebody off or something like that. But just the situation was so weird, you know. It was like this dude did not look at all like somebody who would be stalkerish or anything. Well, I kind of looked over my shoulder, and he was definitely coming towards me. His look was definitely creepy, different now. You know, his look on his face was almost like predatory. And so all of a sudden, in my head, I got a thought, and the thought was very, very forceful. There was a doorway. It was kind of weird. It was kind of like a slanted doorway. And I didn't realize that it was a store, but it was actually a storefront, like a mechanic shop or an auto parts shop. And like at that split second, I turned fast and I went through the doors. And I swear that I felt like almost like I was being pushed through the doorway, you know, like Michael was saying, move your ass, woman, you know, like a hand, like when your hand cups air and there's that force when you cup air in your hand. That's kind of how I felt behind me, like, woof, move. So I go in, you know, like I come through the door, and the guy behind the counter looks at me, looks out the door, and stands up. He knows something's going on. The energy was huge, you know. And then there was another guy there too, a guy that was behind the counter, and he stood up also. And I kind of kept walking straight towards the back of the building. And as I was walking towards the back of the building, an old guy who was also a worker there kind of walked towards the front of the building. So I walked towards the back, played it off, waited about maybe 30 seconds, and I started walking back towards the front of the building because I didn't see the guy anymore. He never came through the doors. So the old guy was outside on the street. I don't know what he was doing out there. I seen him walk out. I didn't see him confront anybody or anything. He didn't say nothing to me. He didn't even acknowledge me or anything, but he was standing out there. I'm looking back and forth down the, you know, kind of just, you know, try not to be too, you know, obvious. And I don't see the guy, so I'm like, all right, I'll just kind of take off and see if I can get over to the parking structure by now, you know, really quick. So I leave the building, and I was just like in awe of what just happened, like, what the hell? And I get to the corner to where I have to cross to get to into the parking building, the parking structure, and I see him, and he's got his back to me, and I'm like, oh great. So and he's about a block away, and I'm only about maybe 50 feet away from the front of the parking structure. Inside the parking structure is nobody, just a bunch of cars. Maybe there might be one or two people, but I doubt that they would be willing to come and help somebody out, you know? So obviously this guy was still kind of looking for me, you know, or kind of hanging around, because I did cross the street and I got to that corner and I started to walk into the parking garage, and he happened to turn around and we went eye to eye. Now he was still about a block away, but time stood still at that moment because he was looking at me. And he turned heel and he started walking towards me quickly. And I'm like, oh fuck. So I go into the parking garage, and thankfully the ground there is nice and, I mean, it's wet, but it's not icy or nothing. And I got my keys in my hand, and I'm speaking to Michael in my head the whole time. And I'm like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to I got the keys in my hand. I'm going to, get him in the car door. I'm going to swing open the door quickly. I'm going to jump in, but if I have to, I'm going to, throw my book bag at him or swing my book bag across his head or something like that if he tries to do something at me. I'm thinking all this. As I'm thinking all this, I'm also thinking to myself, you need to ground yourself. Make sure that your footing is strong. And it was so funny, and I'm begging Michael at this time, like, please help me, get me strong, make me strong, blah, blah, blah. And it was like my shoulders squared up and my hips squared up. And my stride got stronger. And I was like, okay. And you may say, well, it was just your adrenaline. Or you may say that, that's what happens, But man, I felt like somebody pushed me into that building, And you may say, oh, well, it was probably the guy trying to grab at you. You probably felt his energy. Or maybe it was the vacuum of the door opening so fast, pulling me inwards. I don't know. I tend to not believe that. I think that there was something going on, So as I'm walking to the car, I am more and more like feeling empowered, feeling stronger, feeling strength within me, like, bring it on, if you're going to come at me, bring it on. So I get to my car and I turn around and I look at him, and he stops dead in his tracks, and he looks up above me, like behind me, like above and behind my head, and he turns around and he walks away. And I get in my car and I take off. Today was just really weird. It was like this guy was a little off and had some ill intentions for sure. And then I want to know what he saw behind me that made him turn tail. Because when I got in the car, nobody was behind me. There was no guy around me. There was nobody, So what did he see? I've read stories where, big men or big animals even suddenly show up out of nowhere. Did he see something behind me? Because his eyes, he was looking at me like I knew he was going to come towards me. There was now maybe about 50 feet between us as I was with my key in the door to the car. And he just like looked at me. And then he looked up above my head. And he turned around and went away. Not ran away though. No, he was cool about it. He walked away. I don't know.